Everybody's going to think you did cocaine with your sniffling. Hey, everyone, unless I cut this out. So, this has kind of been a long awaited episode in the podcast. I know it's been forever since I've posted one, but my daughter Brooke, she's 15 months sober now. We did a podcast together episode where she was like only a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks sober. Yeah, she wasn't sober long. And I think you'll be astounded by the difference in where she is now versus where she was then. And I encourage you actually to go listen to that episode. The sound quality, the sound quality is horrendous. I apologize. This one should be much better. And it's much crazy. But I think overall it'll be nice to have kind of a different perspective. So everyone, Brooke. Hi. So, just that nobody's here. This isn't live by any means. So you are, I think, just over 15 months sober.
Really? Like, I didn't even know that it was that many months past a year.
Yeah, it is actually, because time flies.
And I keep thinking to myself, anytime I think about it, it's like, yeah, it's just a little bit over a year, which I guess technically it is, but 15 months sounds like a lot.
You know, no, it absolutely does. And it's kind of been a long road to get here. I didn't know if we'd get to this point. In all honesty,
I certainly wasn't sure how it would look by this point. I wasn't even thinking about it that way, for a very long time.
Those who may see this that are new, it's kind of a long story, and but regardless, anybody who has loved someone who struggles with addiction, what's all the same is the pain, I feel like, that goes with it. And I think the pain is on both sides. And we're just not actively numbing it. Right. And so we're going to kind of skip over that part. If you want the backstory, I encourage you to go watch the previous interview her and I did. It was over a year ago. You'll easily
It kind of puts in perspective, even without answering those questions, the difference alone is just kind of says everything it needs to say, I suppose.
Yes. And I think some of these questions will be similar to them, but I think the answers are going to probably be very different. And
which I think is good,
it shows the growth and the change.
Yeah.
And this was actually an interview I always hoped we would get the opportunity to be able to do.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I didn't know if we'd ever get here. So we're just going to kind of jump in. One of the questions, which I think is important, is what was your drug of choice or drugs of choice?
IV, fentanyl, above everything else. But the last couple years, the last year especially, really heavily was IV, meth, and fentanyl. Still primarily the fentanyl, but I got really bad into meth the last time with it. And I was never doing it, both of them intravenously, but I started to because of how bad my addiction to the fentanyl was, and it made it cheaper and last longer, etc. And that shows in the last one too, because the meth usage, as heavy as it was with that, that was what stayed the most. I felt that you could see on me take a long time to fade out of how I moved and my behaviors and stuff, and I didn't realize it was that bad, but I did a little bit because I was starting to not think the same way, and I felt way more crazy than I'd ever felt deep in my drug addiction. It's been bad all sorts of times, but it was a different kind of bad then,
Yeah, but actually when you came on Thanksgiving,
yeah, that was the height of it. I was in the thick of the feeding meth and fentanyl. Yeah.
When you started using any drugs, but fentanyl in particular, right? Because fentanyl has taken thousands of lives.
Yeah.
Did you realize then when you first started how dangerous it actually was?
Trying drugs, any sort of drug for the first time?
I mean, we'll start with let's do fentanyl.
Okay, so I feel like this is important because I had already done heroin before. And the only way I'd ever done it was Fentanyl or, IV usage. And I'd done heroin before, but when I first started doing fentanyl back in like 2019, I didn't know I was doing it for like the first 4 to 5 months. And I, was shooting it and everything. And I was wondering why, like, I was constantly, being found, like, folded over on myself in the bathroom, like basically dead, and why I felt so sick, like, and it wasn't back then, let me tell you what, it was different. Like, it wasn't just the sickness, which was like 1,000 times worse than anything I'd ever experienced. You would get sick quicker and way harder, but also like the emotional and mental turmoil I would feel from how strong those opiates were back then, especially during that time. And like, it was just, I mean, I was crazy. I was like an emotional wreck all the time. I was nuts. And I fell into it so hard and so fast. And it like it was like I sold my soul, dude. And then like when I found out it was fentanyl, because I made an attempt at going to the methadone clinic, because, like I said, I didn't know that's what it was, but I just knew like every single day I'd be like, this is the last time, or then it would be the weekend. I'd be like, this weekend, and then it's, we're done and everything. And it never stopped, and like, but I knew I didn't like it. I just knew, this couldn't be good. Like, it was going to get bad.
Because essentially everything now is fentanyl. I mean, everything you press.
It's different now. It is like, it's in practically everything. It's in meth. It's, it's in uppers, like, and most people, who are buying drugs, don't know that, and like whether it's going to kill you or not, a lot of people, have this misconception, like, yes, it can, but like a lot of times in these drugs, you don't even know that fentanyl's in it, but like, or anything else, if it's not fentanyl, it's something like nasty, like bath salts and shit, or something that you should not be like putting in your body, like aside from the hard drugs. And, like, it was insane. Like, the difference from now to then, like, it was so like intoxicatingly strong. I remember, like, and above anything I had ever even come close to like doing. And like I said, I had done heroin, like more than once, like, and it was insane.
It got a grip on you. Like they
Like,
say,
so
the devil's handcuffs. So is that?
Oh my God, like that's a perfect way to describe it. Like, it was awful. It was very sad. Like, I mean, I was literally like damn near killing myself every single time I would do it, and like you don't even know it, like, until somebody's trying to wake you up, and it was crazy. Like, but now, like, even in the past couple years, like, the drug world has like kind of taken a shift with like so many people are knowingly addicted to fentanyl, and of course, the people that, distribute it utilize that, because I mean, people will do damn near anything to get it, and like it sealed the deal then. Like, it was so bad. It felt like, I remember saying then, like, the antidepressant, like, I've been looking for my entire life. Like, when I would do some of it, I would feel so happy and euphoric, and it was like the feeling I'd been looking for my entire life, and that was so hard to let go of, like. And I, fooled myself into thinking I was like being a better mother on it, which is insane, saying out loud, but like, and again, did not know it was fentanyl, which again, it was just all messed up, but like, and thinking like, this is good, like if I can maintain this, like I'm happy this way, like, which almost sounds like an excuse, but at first it wasn't just like a nasty, like gutter level drug addiction, like I just,
You like the way it made you feel.
yeah, I like the way it made me feel, like, and I always liked how opiates made me feel, but that was just, fentanyl's fucking evil, dude. Like, it is.
Um, how did drug use impact the relationship with you and your siblings?
Oh my God, like, I didn't realize, funny enough, like, how it impacted my relationship with my siblings, because one, like, you know, my siblings are all, my closest sibling in age to me is 5 years younger than me, and then it's like 5 years down the line, like, everybody's 5 years apart. So, the other ones are much younger throughout the years this was going on, it seemed to me, okay? And then, all this time is passing and they're kind of aware of what's going on, the fact that I'm not around, and then I'm kind of in and out here and there, and they're not stupid. And then, like, they're aging as I'm coming back around, maybe once a year, like here and there. And my sister, who's the closest in age to me, like, they go through their own different things, they experience life, and like, I felt very inferior to my sister, like I felt, she's 5 years younger than me and like, is functioning like a normal person. And like, it made me, really like solidify my self-loathing and stuff. And I was never really resentful toward her for it because it wasn't, she didn't do anything wrong, but like, you know, and I felt a big distance between myself and like my, you know, from how old I am, like second, my two other siblings, Easton and Gwen. Mm-hmm. And, there was a huge distance I felt like, and I remember, here and there when I would come back throughout the years, like maybe I'd be around like a little bit longer, and I would start to maybe like get close to Easton and stuff, and then I'd be gone, like that. I couldn't even tell you exactly why, like I would just leave. And
I know I remember this last time when you came home and, it was hard. Like the adjustment, you and Gwen were fighting nonstop. I'd get calls.
Easton fucking couldn't stand me. Like, I mean, he wasn't good. Like, he really couldn't stand me, but like, it was very evident, even though he would keep a lot to himself, that he had no respect for me, which I understood, like, I didn't expect him to have respect for me. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it still sucked to like, he's like 13 years old at the time, and it's like, man, like this sucks.
And I remember what you were talking about though with Gwen, how it's like you want to be able to give her advice as the big sister, but she's
like, why the hell would she take anything, like any advice I had, like
she's kind of like, fuck you.
No, and for good reason, like, why would she ever take advice of mine? Like, yes, I have a lot of life experience technically, like in a lot of different ways, but like, and I wouldn't, say I don't know things, but like at the same time, given my track record and with just everything, like, why would she take advice from me or even like want my opinion on something,
And it was evident how much that hurt you because it was more like you felt inadequate, right?
Oh my gosh, I felt extremely inadequate. And there's already like 1,000 reasons, like, I felt so inadequate anytime I ever come back. That alone, that feeling was enough to drive me to bounce so many times. I felt like, this was pointless. Like it was, it's better for me to just leave them alone. Like I felt like I was to blame for so much like turmoil and issues that would occur, and for good reason, because I felt like, I was the source of a lot of, turmoil, for good reason. But it really sucked, like there was times where like I questioned, leaving a couple times because of it, because it was too much for me to bear, like, it made me, just reaffirm like how like pathetic I felt,
I was scared. I was scared when all that was going on because that had to have been horrible. Now,
I mean,
was it just her?
I feel bad, about how I reacted to things because I, from then to now, like I react to things a lot differently, and I can totally acknowledge that difference. Like I was very quick to fly off the fucking handle and, basically start talking cash shit if I felt like slighted in any sort of way, and even if I didn't do that, it would be evident I would feel some type of way or I would like stew on it, and mind you, there was a lot of different things going on too for months to come during that time, like between all of us, the adjustment in itself, I felt like was going on that entire time, like, but no, it just sucked. And then like, again, with just reaffirming, like, I felt like I've always said this, like, I feel like a fish out of water anytime I like come out, like, out of that world and trying to like do the right thing.
Reintegrate kind of.
It feels impossible, like it feels like, almost like being institutionalized, because like when you live a certain way for so long and like things that are just like not socially acceptable, it isn't nothing, like living the way I was, like you feel like such a weirdo, like you feel like you have a lot to be like ashamed for, which like naturally, yes, like the obvious things, but like, even just in the way you act, the way you joke, like anything.
Well, it's changed. I mean, that's the thing. Like when we had mentioned go back and watch the.
I'm not exactly sure where that change occurred though. I don't think it was definitely not instantaneous. It wasn't like a dramatic shift. Like I woke up one morning.
But there definitely was a shift. Like
It was a very, I have no idea what
3 months, definitely 6 months. I think there was obvious growth that was taking place. And I feel like
that was the meth in itself was what made I feel like this time so much harder with that, because I know that my behavior and like way I even talked and communicated was super erratic and even like just bizarre and quick to anger.
Yes, because a lot of people even had mentioned in the original episode where we recorded, you sounded almost like you were on.
Oh my God, I remember so many people would say that I had to be like off something, like I was, it was fucked up, like.
And it's like, no.
Like clearly she's high, you're blind. And it's like, no, in any of those videos, I wasn't, but I have seen those videos recently, like the one where I'm in that red shirt and where I'm sitting on the rocking chair on the front porch with you and you're talking to me. It was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks into me being maybe like 2 weeks.
No, and how you looked pretty rough in that, like compared.
No, I did. Like you could still see like the marks on my face. Like I looked even just in my eyes and the way like I moved and my body language. And I can honestly say that had nothing to do with being high, not even like nothing at all. I wasn't doing anything.
No,
that had everything to do with like the way I was living. Well, I still didn't feel like top notch, and I did for a while, but like that had everything to do with the way I had been living for so long. Like, and the longer I would be gone, and the more like the times I would come back, like I found it just got harder and harder to like get out of that. Like, and it's not something you just know how to do immediately. If anything, for me, like I felt like, reasonably so, like what is it that I have to change so bad about me, like the way I am when I come back, even like now that even though I'm off drugs now, like I didn't necessarily see anything wrong or like, alarming about my behavior, the way like I even carried myself then. But I was a nutcase, like there was a lot of things then that I like.
There was a lot of healing that had to take place mentally, physically.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it, and that's the thing is like, it is just talking about your siblings, the position I was in.
I can't imagine. Now that's something I can consider.
Yeah, no, but like, right, how Gwen was. Easton kind of kept it to himself, but Easton was vocal to me about his frustrations with you being back and me allowing.
God, I know. He thought I was like a total piece of shit, and I understood why. Like here I am, your 3-year-old sister moving back in the house. I haven't been in my son's life. Y'all basically are brothers and sisters with my kid. Like for the past several years of his life. It's consumed you in a lot of ways throughout that time period, and like it's just, it was a domino effect. Like even the ones that like weren't affected that much, they'll probably look back when they're older and realize they were, like I did not blame anybody or anyone for not having any sort of respect or even tolerance for me back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
but it still sucked ass.
No, it did. And it put me in a bad position because I felt bad for you because I knew what you were feeling because I know you so well. And I'm like, that is a horrible position to feel.
But at the same time, how are you gonna,
But I'm not gonna discount
exactly, like, because if anything, that would just breed more resentment because it's like, what the fuck? Why are you trying to like tell me to like almost, coddle her feelings when like, look at everything that's happened,
Yeah, it was definitely it was a balancing act. It was frustrating at times, but
oh my God, it blew up.
It absolutely did.
One thing that I think has helped a lot is like again, I have no idea where this happened, but like, it feels a lot better to not be so quick to anger because, oh my fucking God, dude, like, I hate feeling like that, but especially it had everything to do with the way I was living. Like, I would be getting in crazy ass arguments or something all the damn time, like with anybody. And when you get like in arguments like that out there, it's basically, like would end in me like threatening somebody's life or something, like not saying I was doing that here, but like it embarrassed me is me to think about like the way I probably came off to like my sister, and everybody for that matter. But like,
yeah, it was definitely an adjustment period, luckily, which we can come back to that. And as far as like family healing, that might be a whole nother episode.
I definitely think that would take up a lot. I could talk about that a lot.
And I don't want to make that episode, this episode kind of that focus, but there was a huge amount of healing, I think, that took place, which probably contributed to you not having so much anger. I think as a whole, because even for me, one of the things I wanted to ask you was about Suboxone. Now, we're going to kind of refer to this as Suboxone because most people are on that. She is actually on Subutex because
I have a documented allergy.
She has a documented anaphylactic allergy to the Narcan, crazy enough. She actually
insane. And I feel like anytime this is brought up, everybody's like, "What? You mean to tell me she was a fentanyl addict and never was Narcan?" No.
Yeah,
I wasn't,
No, and they honestly, thank God, because
no, that would have killed me through the
it probably would have killed her because I watched it happen with the Suboxone when she was on it and her start to
my throat, yeah, my whole tongue swelled up, my throat, it was insane.
So she has we actually have an EpiPen prescribed to her, to have. So, but we'll just refer to it as medicated assisted treatment, or Suboxone because that's what so many people know. So you had been originally you were very against trying. You wanted to try the abstinence route because I think a lot of that just in the very beginning, like
in high school. I know. I wanted to choose the abstinence route
because you felt
because there was a lot of reasons. One, we were both very uneducated on these things back then. Absolutely. So, you also were very like, that's ridiculous, like, and not that I ever, said like, oh, do you think we should do this? Like, I tried the methadone thing, that didn't last long, mainly for, money reasons. It was, from where I lived at the time, it was a really long drive, to get there. I had to get there early as hell in the morning. Like, it was an inconvenience in a lot of ways, and it was easier to just continue doing the drugs that was doing.
And in reality, do you think you were really ready to get?
Or maybe in that moment, I really was trying to start doing that, like taking the daily dose of that because it felt like the only thing I could do because it was the cheaper option and stuff. And, I could do that. I really did want to stop, and I tried to make it, and because I had to like go all the way to Ocala. And,
they don't have any, they still don't have methadone close around here.
No, and it's like way into like the city, and it's just a giant pain in the ass. And like, I did try to make it. Like, I remember I tried to do it on and off, and it was just, I had a piece of shit car, like it was hard, and then that ultimately led to me, like, it was easier to just like, it was easier to convince myself, like, okay, I can just like do this amount, and that keeps me straight, and then, until it gets out of control, like it always does. But
in regards to the Suboxone, when you were finally willing to try it, which was what tree? Oh, it's here in Florida when you went that they put you on it. Because you had
also, I had started to come around, and that was what like led me to getting on it. Okay, because for the first couple years of me being like down and out, like I was, and all over, Idaho and stuff and everywhere, you were very against that, like you saw a lot of like the horror stories of it, working in the ER at the time. And not to mention, you were learning, gradually, a lot of people have that opinion at first. Some people still do, and finally something that kind of shifted because, you're just getting like to be this cycle, and just getting worse. And honestly, where everything went wrong, like with the first treatment, thing, first like 2, was the fact that it was abstinence based, and I had no idea then. But I mean, I remember like being hysterical because like once I wasn't sick anymore, like a month down the line, missing fentanyl and the high and the way it made me feel so badly, like in an all-consuming way, that, and it was like devastating. I hated myself, where I felt like I missed dope more than I missed my kid, you know, which was, I, not that I didn't miss my son. I that in itself is a whole other thing that like broke me apart, you know, like the way I failed, you know, in that sense. But like it, you know, had me in a chokehold, dude. Like, and that just goes along with like what we were talking about at first with how potent it was back then. I mean, it was awful, you know, and I remember getting out, you know, graduating that program and like still, you know, just feeling like I could not get it out of my head, you know, like, and trying to do the right thing, trying to make you guys happy, trying to, you know, do the right thing so I can be in my kid's life, you know, and I just could not shake the obsessive thoughts like I was just talking about today, you know, like, and cravings too, you know, like I'd only gone to like a 30-day program, so I still had really intense cravings the entire time. It was awful, you know, and like I'm trying to like put all this energy into like working through that and stuff, and it just, I'm sitting there wondering, like, when does it go away? You know, you like, you see these people like saying it goes away for them, like it never would, you know, and
It quiets the thoughts.
oh my God, it was so bad. And not to mention, like, with how fresh it was still, like, I still, you know, felt like I craved it with my whole fucking body and soul, you know, for a long time still. Like, it was bad, you know. If anything, like, Matt was the best fucking treatment decision that, you know, I ever, or you ever, you know, talked me into, and I like agreed to, because that made all the difference,
And,
you know.
and I kind of, this is kind of a question. You may know the answer, you may not. You know, you had tried Suboxone, but still ultimately ended up relapsing.
I think everything has to do with, because again, you know, ignorance about, you know, medicated assisted treatment, you know, like there's a lot of ignorance surrounding it. It has honestly only started to change in recent years, but still, like in places like where we live, there's a lot of ignorance behind it. Like,
Yes.
they, you know, see these people coming off the street addicted to like, you know, elephant tranquilizer drugs, and they're like, you know, trying to start them on like 2 milligrams of subs. That's not going to do shit for that person. Even if it like curbs their sickness a little bit, that is not going to do a damn thing for them. They like with the cravings, and you're probably still going to be sick. I know I would be, you know, like, so they would usually like set me up with like 8 milligrams, and I would take like, you know, a half of it in the morning. Or was it even 8
No, I don't
milligrams?
even know. I think
It was like 4 milligrams.
yeah, I think it was 4 a day.
Yeah.
I think that
It wasn't even 8. It was like 4.
Mhm.
And 4 milligrams a day, maybe like 2 milligrams in the morning. I think it would just take 4.
I think you did. Because you preferred daily at that time.
Yeah. And my little tubby baby.
We have the baby on the monitor. So,
But no, I want to finish this real fast. This is important. Like, because I wish more people, like, too bad, you know, this can't, you know, more people wouldn't care about this, but like, it is important. I think, you know, a lot of people would shove down people's throat that, like, oh, it's just trading one for another. You're just going to be dependent on that. Maybe that's true, you know, like being dependent. You know, I am dependent on my, you know, mat stuff that I'm on, but like, it,
she's fine.
yeah, she's playing. Yeah, she's swinging her arms around. She's just slapping her little. Anyways, you know, the only thing that has kept me like solidly doing the right thing is like, I never realized how backwards and messed up it was that I was like on and off trying to do medicated assisted treatment and still would have these horrible cravings. Because yes, I was on subs on and off throughout the years, but I would still find myself constantly craving stuff, whether maybe not as severely, but still like it would always get to a point where it was like I would, you know, at least think about it once a day, you know, pretty hard, and have to like shake the thoughts of it. But like, it just never curbed it, you know, and like until, and it took a long time for you to like came to me and was like, you know, I think they've been getting this all wrong. Like, I don't think they've been dosing you high enough. And you were oh my goodness. She's looking right. It's like, and she's so funny. That's exactly like everything that was wrong with it. They were never dosing me enough. And the funny thing is I can't believe I never had enough common sense for this, but I trusted, you know, the treatment places and doctors trying to give me this shit. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of should have assumed with as hard of the drugs, like as I was doing, and I would always feel like shit, you know, for the first like couple weeks, even though I was taking the, subs.
And you're not
Because they
really
were not
supposed
giving
to.
no, you're not. Like, now that we know that, they would act like it wasn't anything like, that's normal, No, it's because you were doing too much and you needed to,
Or so. She's not really crying yet. And I think this comes just
yelling.
yeah, but it comes down to kind of like with the Suboxone is, they weren't giving you enough. And the whole idea, you got to think about why people leave treatment when they're detoxing. And it's like, well, they're on subs. And then I'll ask parents that message me, I'll say, how much are they on? And I find out it's like 2 milligrams.
No,
Or
I mean, it's like, it explains everything.
It does.
There was a time that I wouldn't have thought nothing of that, because I just didn't know. I was ignorant to it. But now I fucking know. Like, some people, depending on what you're doing, maybe that'll work for you. But like, they're not telling people what they should be looking for, and they are encouraging getting on a higher dose, like, not immediately a crazy high dose, but like, I personally needed to be on the dose that I, am on, like, and it was much higher than, what I was historically ever on, anywhere close, but like, it was, because, if you remember, like, when I first came home, I was still like really, really sick and stuff, and like slow and, groggy and stuff. Like, it took me like, getting up on my dose to finally, for like a week, kind of start to be able to function.
Yeah, no, it did. And she's just looking around, wondering what's going on. But no, and so to give some perspective, Brooke was originally on like 4 milligrams total a day coming off of IV fentanyl. Okay. And I didn't know enough about it.
I didn't know.
Well, I'm thinking they're the professionals, they should know. To get perspective for when we decided this last time, which we'll get into, is skipping treatment and her detoxing at home. And I got her on subs and found a very appropriate provider. Who
didn't I have to take like a crazy amount?
No, she was on starting out. It was 8 milligrams 3 times a day.
I didn't even know that.
8 milligrams 3 times a day. And that I believe is what helped her stay, not take off. And it just makes me wonder how many treatment facilities are underdosing. And this is why people are bouncing.
It's very
from
detox, like, I mean, every single place I ever went to like detox, like, they almost every place I've ever been, maybe it's not like this in the more like, progressive like places, like maybe like California stuff. I guarantee it like that.
I think there's
but a lot of the places like down south and stuff, like where we're at, like totally believe that almost all of them are like, they are, if anything, discouraging going higher on it, like they try to, tell you that this is going to work for you, and it doesn't, especially not.
And all they'd have to do is ask, are you?
But they don't.
They don't want. But no, Brooke was very fortunate because I really educated myself and just realizing how underdosed people are with medicated assisted treatment. And that is what I encourage. One thing I'm going to encourage families is please find out what they're dosing your loved one on, as long as they give you permission to have information on them. Those are important questions because, and I think you should ask that because, right, it's a lot of times it's the loved ones who are calling and evaluating these rehabs. I think it's important to know, what are you going to start people on who are using, say, fentanyl, opioids? How do you dose your subs, your medicated assisted treatment? And if they're telling you, there's, if they have a cap or what's the highest they've given. One of my dear friends, Dr. Taylor Nichols, who I think the last podcast episode I did was with him. Him and I actually talked about this. And I mean, there are times where he has had to give over like 24 milligrams a day easily. I can't remember what he said, like the amount, it was really high because that's what the person needed to stay off the drugs. And once you can get them through that detox where those illicit drugs are leaving their system and you're on this, you can cut back. So like she initially was on 8 milligrams 3 times a day, and now she's on 8 milligrams 2 times a day. And so that in itself, she didn't even take it 3 times a day, but for maybe a month, and that was it. So, which is pretty astounding. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna let her make a bottle and we'll be back. I just want to say it feels so good to have my dog back. I haven't been making a lot of content, but it does. And I wish this every Spitz. I mean, but I have a lot more questions I'm going to ask her. So we'll see how long baby Bread will cooperate.
This baby.
But, and so we covered Suboxone, and I think a big reason why this time at work was appropriate dosing. I think time, I think you needed to be a little bit ready also.
But that did make all the difference. I 110% believe that that made all the difference this time, is because the entire course of all of this, when it got really, really bad, and I tried it on and off, was I was never dosed high enough. And now I know that. I know for a fact.
Because she just last month, those who deal with pharmacies, and she was due to get it filled and it was on back order. So she had to wait, and you went, what, a day?
Yeah, I got over 24 hours without it.
And she started to feel it. She started to feel
by the time I got it, that evening, because it was the next day, I had to wait for Mike to get off work. I did not feel well. I wasn't sick, but I was sweating and stuff, and feeling tired and shitty. She looks like little baby Jesus.
She does. She's just react dinner. She's just so happy she's eating.
Staring.
I know. And so this kind of rolls into your last treatment program you went into. I think we should talk about that experience. It's been now a couple of years.
Now that my thoughts are more collected on it, I am so ready to really dissect that, because it was insane. Look at the camera mode so they know.
Insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. Cut that out. That was awful.
So the last place Brooke attended was Maryland Addiction Recovery Center. And if you were to go and check off all the boxes that they say when looking for a, what would be the word, non-corrupt facility, like red flags, that place would meet, it would be quality.
Purposely to rope you in too.
Yeah,
it was sinister the way that they rope you in
by the standards that are listed. They kind of check all the boxes. They said they were medicated assisted treatment friendly, which later learned was not the case at that time. They were Vivitrol friendly, which is not a part of the gold standard.
They weren't friendly at all, dude. We're dictators with it was unlike any treatment place I had ever been to. I'm not saying I was the perfect patient, not at all. I definitely showed my ass, and didn't always follow the rules, but there was so many things that were just wrong, that the way they did things, they absolutely isolated me from my family members. I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody when I was told in the intake, and so were you, that it was a 90-day blackout.
No, it was a specified 30-day, 45-day max.
Oh, so I was about to say,
what it ended up being over 90 days. And I was just what is
I was about to say, that's right. Oh my God, what am I talking about? 90 days.
She
it was that 30-day blackout, and sometimes maybe 45 days, right? And I remember okay, I heard this, and I remember hearing, sometimes 45 days max, right? And it was not the case. The entire stay that I was there for several months, I was never allowed to call, home, and unless I was being supervised and I was talking to my son, I would FaceTime you guys to talk to Miles, and I was forbidden to talk to any of you, any of the adults, and I would get in trouble if because somebody was in the room listening to me, I was a fucking hostage, and if the adult that was with Miles started speaking to me, or if I said anything to them, and it could be the smallest thing. And I remember, one thing I got in trouble for was when I was sent, because it was Maryland in the middle of winter time, I was sent a pair of snow boots. Mind you, it was freezing and I had no warm clothes. I'd been living in Florida, for years since you guys had been in Idaho. So I had no warm clothes with me that I went with. And, you guys were not allowed to send anything. Nobody was allowed to be sent anything for whatever bullshit ass rule they had. Like,
the reason was they wanted you to rely on the other people.
oh yeah, your like circle that you would
Your circle.
and like you would have sober supports is what they were called. Okay, so they would expect you, like, as soon as you went there, you would be expected to go to meetings, which sounds reasonable, right? I am
Because they utilize, my understanding is, I don't know if it's synagogue, if that's what it was called, the original, and it implemented, it was therapeutic community, which was you got to tear them down and to build.
that sounds right, actually, because like it was very much like in some ways like with the therapist, it was definitely, I feel like the tearing down method was prevalent with the, you're so bleedy. I the therapists were the ones that like, like I'm all for like trying to, challenge us, which I welcome the idea of being challenged. Honestly, like I wanted that, I at first, like trying to see the bright side of things, felt like this was a place where I really could work through things and stuff, and I'm not gonna say I didn't learn anything there, but like what I mostly took from it is nothing but bad things, like I'm grateful for some of the girls I met. Like, I feel like I got a better understanding of like friendships with girls, living in such close proximity with them. I made a couple friends with some girls there that like, it makes me sad that, I'll probably never see them again, and it was like pure, like just genuine friendship. And it was great, like I had so much fun with them and like laughed with them. And I wasn't friends with everybody there by any means. I've never been that type of person, but like, there's definitely a couple people, like of the girls that I lived with that like, I still think about, and hope they're doing well. But it was really hard though. Like I was not, I never was friends with girls or anything, like, so that in itself was kind of hard. But like, I would say that was a good thing for me to learn, like, cause you were, not permitted to like mingle with the guys. If they saw you talking to a guy too much as like a girl patient or vice versa, you could potentially be put on a girl ban or a boy ban where like, if you're, a girl like me, you were not allowed to talk to any of the girl patients, or I mean boy patients, sorry. And or you would get in trouble, like, and have like longer restrictions and stuff. Like there was somebody there who was on one, and
I'm going to be honest. I honestly think treatment should be completely segregated in regards to gender.
I'm going to be honest with that as well. Like, I remember I'll be completely real, like there was times where I absolutely was opposed to, going to an all girls treatment center, very vocal about that. But I absolutely agree with the fact that, in almost 99% of cases and anyone I've ever met in treatment, a lot of times, they meet somebody, like there's no reason that like they should honestly be mingling together, boys and girls.
I think it's a distraction.
It is absolutely a distraction. That's what I was
going to say. Its own addiction, right?
No, it is. Like, especially because some people do struggle with that. Like, whether they're like extremely, codependent, which in my case, I was very like much in the throes of my codependency when I went there, which, like was something I was struggling with the whole time.
And I wanted to kind of ask about, because we've talked about the enmeshment that the therapist, I think, put in your head, because the only person I was allowed to speak to was the therapist. That was it. And,
I'm gonna be real. I do absolutely, almost in like a comedic way, know for a fact that there is a meshment between us. I didn't see the vision.
But shouldn't there be between parent and child?
Like to the degree that I think it was being used as like a weapon. I absolutely think that, like, because I don't think that they like the fact that, a patient's parent was getting, irritated and annoyed with like the things they were doing there. And so they took advantage of the fact that like they had control over when I was allowed to talk to my family, and something I feel like this is important to share like about that is like the people that were much farther in the program. Like I saw a couple people graduate, like girls that I was with, and or move on to the like final phase, which was like had a lot of freedom and stuff, like which seemed like really cool, like the whole like you were you know able to have a job and even date. You were permitted that, like when you got into the final phase and stuff, and much like very little supervision and stuff. You're allowed to make your own money. They were still very much monitoring what you were doing in your life, but like, I'm going to be so honest. It was none of that shit was worth getting to that point. For anybody that's worked for, I am more than happy for them. Like some people, I met people that, did graduate from there, and like they seemed like super, well balanced, like happy people, and I just couldn't get down with that shit, and it was depressing though, because there was reasons I did stay too, like those two girls that I was really close with, who we ended up like rooming together for some time. And oh, and I remember they ended up moving us around, like, and because they would randomly move girls around, especially if a new patient would come, like, and the girls' dorm area, I guess. And but they would still just randomly move us. I feel like if they thought you were getting like too close, and wanted other people to be friends with each other and shit, and or if they thought it would be trouble, and I stayed. A big reason I stayed too was because of how close I got with like the two roommates I had at a certain point in my stay, and that in itself made me really happy for a while, like. But it was also a distraction, like when I was alone with my thoughts, it fucking sucked, like there were still things I was really frustrated about, and then I started to see the girl who like came in like a week or two before me, who was like my best friend in there.
You've said those girls are out, right? That were your roommates.
I'm pretty sure they are.
I'm just going to say, because I was asked specifically not to say it because I knew she was still in it, and I'm not going to say names, but how I found out when you were missing.
About sure the person I'm talking about right now, I'm pretty sure.
With the Suboxone, because I did not know they had taken you off.
She saw firsthand like what I was going through.
She reached out to me, still being in Maryland,
in the level that I was in, like,
and she told me that what had happened, and that they had made her go off right after Christmas. She told me like the day after,
and I was like the day leaving like during Christmas.
Yeah, and she said, and she had specifically said, please do not say anything, and I never did, because, and I'm like, it's been now
she
years, so she shouldn't be there. And I'm not about causing harm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she
did. But thank you. I don't remember your name. I'm sure she does, but we're not going to say it. But thank you for letting me know that, because she was there firsthand. That isn't just mama getting hearsay, or people thinking that my daughter is feeding me a bunch of bullshit.
Well, and that is important for that reason. That's very important for that reason, because like it honestly sounds kind of.
We didn't even know where you were at the time.
Well,
when she messaged,
it already sounds like it's what's so sinister about it is like they are very good at what they do, and like the way they have built their program to be, because it is very good for them to get away with this shit, and make it seem like it's very minimal issues, and like you guys are the ones that have the problem.
Lie.
Exactly, and like, and have codependent relationships. They have dysfunctional relationships, and the ways they, act in a relationship and everything. And I definitely 100% believe they took advantage of that, that like, that's how family members will react and stuff. And like, and there's so much that was just insane about that shit, like.
Yeah, but look at where we are now. And I know she's getting tired and anxious. So I'm just gonna ask you a few more questions, and we can always do a whole episode about that. Leaning into that, what have you learned about yourself in the last 15 months you've been sober?
I've learned that I have learned a lot of things, but like, I've learned that, it is possible even though it sounds so cheesy because I used to hear something like this all the time. But like
You can dish it out.
in the ways that I would hear it, I feel like maybe in the ways they were speaking about it wasn't the way that I'd experienced this, okay? Like being on the other side of like the thick of like all the turmoil and like, destruction of your family and like relationships with your family members and stuff. Like it is possible to like heal with each other, but at the same time, it's really, really difficult. And things I feel like almost never align perfectly for that to be possible. Like, let's say it's between two people, for that to be possible between those two individuals, like each of them aligning together properly to like be able to do that. And plus, aligning, is not always easy. Like, I feel like it was that way for us. It was very like on and off, like we weren't talking at times. We were having horrible, explosive arguments at times. Like, I do think things were a lot different than they've ever have been, but we certainly were not our best selves, at times with each other, and just in general,
I think for us and our relationship and our dynamic is, I think in order for healing to really take place, I think it's that I had to finally work on me and for you to see the change, for you to start to, I feel like, trust me. I think you trusted me in some ways, but I don't even know if it's trust.
It was so hard to describe,
corny as that sounds.
No, it doesn't sound corny, like it's a way to describe it, like because our dynamic, I'm not even going to try and get into explaining it like how it was in the past, because it's very layered, and how it was, especially throughout the years, like I feel like it took on different, forms and like relationship styles almost, like, but at its core, it was still just like a shit show, but I started to see a change in you, like I've told you plenty of times, like, before, like probably a year before, before I went to Mark, in fact.
Yeah.
I noticed a change in you, for sure. And I did, I remember that was the first time I really noticed a difference, and then this go around, I think a big thing, to add on to the Mark thing was like, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I was not perfect at Mark, and she didn't think I was, like I feel like a lot of people, wanted to go with the narrative that like, oh, you were just,
No.
an obsessed parent that like your child does no wrong. No, there was a lot of things that were really just backwards and shitty, and I feel honestly not fair or shouldn't have been like allowed that occurred there, like, and I don't feel like we worked through jack shit while we were there. If anything, that happened after the fact, way down the line, and that was what was supposed to happen, like, but I'm trying to think what the fuck I was going to say. It was important about that. Cut this out. Like,
it was what you've learned about yourself in the last year. And I think I had said, as far as I needed to heal, really, and for you to see it.
Oh, I remember what I was going for. Sorry. It does have everything to do with that. Like, okay, so when, we went all this time without communication, okay, I had a lot of thoughts, like about things. And I had a feeling maybe you didn't agree with everything. Cause like, I don't know if you remember that time when I was like not allowed to talk to you or call Miles for like a week or so or for a little while because we spoke very briefly, because you were upset about the snow boots thing because it was freezing there. And maybe something else along the lines. Like, I think when I was really upset, I was like really emotional about things. It was another time after that. But still, like I was not allowed to talk to you guys. Like, I had a lot of different things that I thought, not to mention the shit I would hear from, the groups and the therapies and stuff. And, I honestly didn't think that you would agree, for a lot of reasons for me to leave, so or like, let alone something, different could have happened. So that's a big reason that led me into thinking there was no other option than like just, walking out, onto the streets and shit. And that was kind of a big deal because I didn't expect that. Like, I didn't expect you to be like, wanting to know what happened, and actually kind of knowing that, maybe things weren't right, and you had already kind of got that impression and that, I'm not saying like things, started to really, balance out for between me and you, in the near future after that. Like, shit, I, left again and stuff not long after and everything. But, like, that was impactful, because that was a big reason why I didn't reach out to any of you guys after I left too, despite the fact that they didn't give me my cell phone that, I owned and never mailed back to your guys' house. But, I thought you would be pissed at me, and just whatever, and it was also really easy to just like, immediately think that I needed to do what I went and did because like, it's what I always did, so it was easy to just do that. And, like I was going on a mission or something. But that was a big deal for me, and, but also the Thanksgiving thing. That was what was the real, I think, turning point was I remember, I'll never forget, like the day I got that text message, I was like in tears, I was preparing for that like a month in advance to make sure that I wasn't too sick to go so I would function. Yeah.
I know you are.
I was scrambling like every single day, to make sure that I was not too like, I didn't want to look, but I also didn't want to, I was trying to, I tried to do my makeup and everything like, and nobody once ever made me feel like that, like, and it just meant the world to me,
And last and not least, have you ever baby bummed?
I don't think so. I have definitely been in precarious situations where, not like me, but like, I definitely have known a handful of girls, especially that like were super into that, like that would try to talk me into it because they'd be watching me like struggle to do things the way I did it, like, and I was just like, man, I can't get down with that because I knew a chick that had like 3rd-degree burns on her genitals from like doing that with meth, so
That's terrifying.
I don't know, I've never done that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's one thing I have not done.
Great. The more you know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was fun. All right, you guys. Till next time. And if you like what you saw, by all means, hit subscribe, follow.
Bye.